I remember where I was when 9/11 happened. I would have been in primary school. We would have just started back in school. All the Muslim people got the reputation for 9/11. Everyone got judged by it, which I didn't really think it was fair, and then the whole society is blamed for something that a couple of people did. After September 11th, after everything what was on Bin Laden and stuff like that, I kind of got really fascinated by everything. I found the government was completely corrupt. So I had a lot of hatred for politicians, for the government. I became a Muslim for the wrong reason. I wanted to know about extremism, about stuff like that. I was kind of fascinated by it when I was younger. And I thought that we'd just been rebellious, and that's why I kind of got fascinated by it.
In the years since 9/11, Islamic terrorism has attempted to spread chaos across the globe. Now, several extremist groups have sprung up, but it's the so-called Islamic State, or ISIS, that has taken over from Al-Qaeda as the principal enemy of the West.
The ideology of a single Islamic State has been continuously propagandized across Europe, calling ISIS sympathizers to arms by any means possible.
Brutal, well-organized and well-financed.
The Irish flag has also been included on an ISIS propaganda video which lists the perceived enemies of the caliphate.
And then the flames of war will finally burn you on the hills of death.
Dr. Paul Gill is a senior lecturer in security and crime science at University College London.
What ISIS has been really effective at doing is releasing English-speaking magazines through a number of different channels, through Twitter, through YouTube, and through other different places, which gives a number of criteria to say, if you pull off these certain behaviours and go after these types of targets, in the aftermath, we will claim you as one of our own. You know, we'll give you that identity and we'll put your name up in lights, basically. ISIS work like any major organisation in that when they're going through a recruitment process, they don't just select anybody to join the organisation, and often they'll get them to fill out a number of forms. The recent release of data from 2 years ago, there's around about 5 or 6 individuals which had Irish addresses. Other individuals mentioned Irish-based people as their their fixer, so they're the ones that told them where to go in order to sign up for these recruitments.
The first time I converted, I got into Islam, would have been about 8 years ago now, in England. I just read up about it and stuff like that. I just used to always go over and back. I always loved England. I do think that I was radicalised when I first became Muslim. The first couple of years, I used to go to the mosque regularly, and I used to pray regularly. I used to pray 5 times a day, and I used to read books about jihad, which was something that I was really fascinated with, and I could talk about it for hours without getting tired from talking about it. And then I became friends with 1 or 2 female members of the community that would have introduced me to this group. I would have altogether met Curran but about 30-40 times, I'd say. They all pretty much knew that I had extremist views and stuff like that. So for that reason, I think he thought it was pretty much okay to talk in front of me. He didn't treat me different as an outsider or anything.
As the toxic ideology of ISIS has spread via social media and face-to-face radicalisation, so too has the number of attacks.
Local reports say the driver of the van fled on foot after mowing down dozens of people.
According to Aaliyah, when Curran Butt was in Ireland, he laughed whilst watching terrorist attacks on TV.
They used to find it funny when they would hear something on the news or something that was after happening. They used to find it funny. They used to say, well, that person didn't mean anything. They used to talk about stuff like it was computer games. They never made it sound like it was something that really was going to happen. I thought in the beginning that he's just someone that's talking, he's just an angry person and that's how he's expressing his emotions. Because we all have stuff where we say, oh, this could happen or that could happen.
Ireland already had connections with Islamic extremism before the London Bridge attack, and those links also came back to London. Now, is it possible that Ireland was selected as a safe haven for Islamic extremists to hide out, to plot and to radicalise before the attacks here?
What connections between ISIS and Ireland have you come across?
There has been instances where people who are relatives of ISIS commanders were spotted basically here in either in Dublin or in the southeastern counties like Wexford and Waterford.
The awareness that Ireland isn't a first-class security infrastructure state, that's known by Islamist extremist networks, that we are stretched, that we don't have the same type of intelligence capability as other European countries.
The threat level in Ireland at the moment is at moderate. That is, an attack is possible, but not likely. That is the definition. Ireland is a safe environment. Dublin is a safe city. I think that's reflected by the number of international organisations and businesses that locate here. But it is also important that we are not complacent in that regard and that we are vigilant.
In my opinion, ISIS decided basically to use Ireland as not just only a place for fundraising, but also a place for recruitment.
Ireland would get its very own homegrown jihadi, Terry Kelly, also known as Khalid Kelly or Taliban Terry. He was originally from the Liberties in Dublin's inner city.
I don't live here anymore. I've travelled to many places in the world. Home will be where Islamic Sharia law is implemented, and I can live there in security with my children.
When 9/11 happened, Kelly was a prisoner in a Saudi jail serving time for selling alcohol. It was in this same prison that he converted to Islam.
When 9/11 happened in 2001, the first thing I said was, what else did they expect? And when I heard 3,000 people were killed, I thought, well, hold on, that is a lot of people, but it's not as much as hundreds of thousands of Muslims,
In 2002, Kelly was deported to Britain, where he attended sermons by radical cleric Omar Bakri Mohammed. He became a member of the banned extremist group Al-Muhajirun and became the leader of its Irish branch. Kelly was used for propaganda purposes. One of the group's senior figures, hate preacher Anjem Choudhury, aided by Kelly, embarked on a tour of Irish media.
Even if someone like Margaret Hassan gives as much as a drink of water to an American or to a British soldier, that they are legitimate targets.
No, I said as a general rule, those people who are helping the enemy are considered to be part of them.
And where does humanity fit into all of this?
In 2016, Choudhury was jailed for 5 years in the UK for terrorism offences. Significantly, Khalid Kelly was a friend of Mohammed Shamsuddin, another of Choudhury's followers. Kelly spent a considerable amount of time with him in London. One of Shamsuddin's connections was Khurram Butt, the man who led the attack on London Bridge.
Now, it's almost unthinkable, given their close relationships at the same time in the same city, that either Khalid Kelly or Khurram Butt wouldn't have known each other or shared information about Ireland.
In November 2016, Kelly died in a failed suicide attack for Islamic State outside Mosul. He was driving an armoured truck laden with explosives, which triggered before reaching his target. ISIS would later claim responsibility for the attack, crediting Kelly with his jihadi pseudonym Abu Osama al-Irlandi.
Khalid Kelly talked very openly, including in Irish media, radio, TV, etc., about his affinity with Islamist terrorism, and talked openly about his plans, talked about martyrdom. Now, he was seen as a laughingstock in Ireland, no laughingstock to that village in Iraq. He was still able to leave the state, travel and blow himself up in an Iraqi village, and being able to do that is worrying in terms of Islamist extremism and the migration of extremists looking for easier places to operate with less scrutiny. Ireland can potentially be seen as a soft touch there.
By the time of his death, Khalid Kelly had served his purpose for ISIS. They now realised Ireland's strategic value. They didn't need Kelly. According to Elia, they had Khurram Butt, who by now was staying with her in Ireland on a regular basis.
Khurram Butt would have visited us a good few times when we were in Ireland from that time period.
In 2015, Aliyah began a relationship with a Muslim man of Pakistani descent. The two would live between homes in Dublin and London.
In the next couple of weeks, when we went back to Ireland and we'd come over and back and he would come over to visit us, the relationship with him developed that we all became really close. Me and Khurram would have became quite close. They wouldn't have treated me any different like I was an outsider. It was like they treated me like I was their brother. And Khurram used to make a joke about that I was like a brother to him. I would have altogether met Khurram about 30-40 times, I'd say.
If Khurram Butt was travelling to Ireland between February 2015 and September 2016, what was he doing here? Who was he meeting? And what were they discussing?
We would have met him in the house in Dublin 9 and we would have went out together as well. We went to Limerick. We went to Cavan together as well. We would have went down to Clonmel. We would have went to like various places like that. In the countryside of Limerick as well. He would have wanted to go to visit people, which they would have just brought me along kind of like as a friendly face kind of thing. They would have spoke about their views and stuff like that in places in Limerick, especially in Limerick. They had a close circle of friends there. In Clonmel as well, they would have had a close group of friends. They would have made the plans. They would have always asked me to go.
Yes, there are people out there who hold extremist views, not just in this area, but in other areas, including domestic terrorism. But holding extremist views on its own does not mean that one poses a threat to the security of the state.
Once you believe in hatred, once you believe in the concept of us and them, and that you as a Muslim cannot live in peace with non-Muslims, and you must bring Sharia law, you must bring back the caliphate, and that democracy is not compatible with the Islamic way of life, I believe that is a very dangerous thing, because that is a stepping stone towards terrorism.